Welcome to a special episode of The Triple Effect, COVID Stories, the series. I'm Rashid Hill. I'm the host, a strategic intervention specialist and personal development coach with the main focus in emotional intelligence. I'm a published author of the book 8 Ways to Be 10 Times Better and a contributing writer for the Life by Design Entrepreneur magazine here in San Diego. I'm the founder of L3 Coaching Solutions and the creator of the Hero Coaching Model, High Excellence Results Options. I help people unlock their true potential in order to pursue their desired lifestyle. On today's show, we have a special guest. We have someone that has previously been on. We had great conversation. We had such a great conversation, we had to split it up into 2 episodes. And so today we want to talk about something that we all are privy to, been affected by, and will continue to be affected by for times to come. This is not the first time we've been inside of what they call pandemic or epidemic or crisis of this sort. But this one is a little different. And so we want to have that conversation, and we want to hear from the people that are being affected by it and directly hear their stories and experiences. So that's why I set up this particular podcast, and I would love to have our guest, Mr. Mike Love. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're here.
Welcome. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending upon what time zone everybody's in out there. I want to thank my dear brother Rashid Hill for inviting me to come back. Yes, the conversation was so rich and deep last time we lost control, so he had to break it up, I think, to limit the pain a little bit. But anyway, yes, my name is Michael Love. I'm an educator of 27 years, retiring next month, but planning to spin off and continue my work. My subject area in education was mathematics at the high school level. Also did some adjunct work at colleges for a while. And but also I call myself a tireless advocate for equity in our schools and in my classroom particularly, especially when it comes to working with young men of color or those people who are historically underserved, coming from poor, low income, struggling communities financially, okay? So that's been my work. I've been blessed to receive a recognition or 2 in my time. 2010 San Diego County Teacher of the Year, wow. 2017 10 News Lead San Diego Community Activist Finalist, 2008, 2009 Student African American Brotherhood Educator of the Year at the San Diego State Chapter. And I've got a few others that, when you live long enough, you hopefully you garner some awards if you're making a difference. But the biggest pride in my work, I guess, that I take is that for the last 15 years, we've hosted a young men's leadership event at Mount Miguel High School. And that event has brought in, over the years, multiple thousands of young men to come in and learn from community people such as you, dear brother Rashid, as well as many, many others, educators, business people, community activists, members of the faith community, and just people who want to come in and help young men, particularly young men of color, advance themselves, understand the principles they can use to improve their lives and empower themselves, and do well in a system which has historically marginalized them and pushed them to the side. We have the highest dropout rates, the highest failure rates, the lowest graduation rates of any other group. Even those who come from other countries outdo us. So this is kind of a sore point with me, but I say that it's not a flaw in the young men, it's a flaw in the way the system has historically treated the young men, and the system was not created to lift us up. If they're lucky, I think the average, and I've just read some online work, and this is totally anecdotal, the typical year that a young man of color runs into or has his first Black teacher is often in high school or college. Wow. And if you don't see yourself in the front of the room, what this does to you over time, particularly if the people in the front of the room are not really well equipped to serve people in the communities that they are teaching in. So that'll be part of our discussion later. And like I said, I'm glad to be here. Thank you again. And I hope everyone gets something good out of this. If you want to reach me personally, my Gmail is michaelelove42. michaelelove42@gmail.com. Feel free to email me. I'm also on Twitter as ML the Educator. I'm on Facebook as Michael Love with a fight the power symbol, and it's an open page, and you can go there and you can find some postings of various types that deal with education matters as well. So glad to be here, and as they say, let's get ready to rumble, my brother.
Yes, sir. See, I knew that you definitely would do yourself justice. I would have fumbled through it, and people would have gotten the real benefit and feel the energy of your veteran status in the education field. We appreciate it. I have tremendous respect for educators in the formal setting, and being a parent of a 9-year-old that is taking some classes from the home at this moment because of this pandemic. Yeah, it's challenging. So, but rewarding as well. I learned a lot from the experience. So today we're going to talk about COVID-19, your story. What is it that COVID has done to or for you during the times that you've been away from your normal workplace? So that's the premise of the conversation. And we'll have a few more questions I've come up with. A disclaimer of sorts. I did come up with about 3 pages of questions, but I will not ask them all to you.
Save some for the next interview, okay? Maybe by then we'll have this thing solved, okay?
And so I've selected a few that I believe will open up the conversation, and from an education perspective, challenge our intellect to really give the audience food for thought, as well as expressions from our own experiences. To kick it off, I would like to ask the question, do you think this virus, pandemic of sorts, global lockdown is real? And do you think necessary measures have been taken, and are they timely?
When I hear that the death toll in America has approached 100,000 people, yes, to me it is real. Our response to it can be debated back and forth one way or another. Were we on time? Were we not on time? But I think what it's done for me is 2 things. Number one, it's made me really look at the way that I engage with my students in a real life context, okay? The second thing is it has highlighted inequities in many communities. When you realize where the largest death rates are occurring are in mostly poor communities and communities of color, and how the society has responded to that reality may be a little different in some people's minds than it would have if it hit Beverly Hills, Rancho Santa Fe, and areas, Palos Verdes Estates, for example, okay? If the millionaires were falling over dying, I think it would be a very different response than it would be given that it's communities of color. Number 2, the communities of color and underserved communities financially are most at risk with businesses closing, because many of those individuals are on gig work or on wage work, not salary work, but wage work. And if they don't work, they don't eat. And I've unfortunately heard from more than a few students of mine whose parents have lost jobs, whose parents have been unable to travel to work, and the stress levels at home have increased exponentially as a result of that. We need to be mindful of this. Again, the communities that are most at risk when the economy crashes are the ones who can least afford to have things fall apart like this. But we do need to reopen carefully. Our society for generations has not done well by these underserved groups. So I'm hoping that we will recreate some things so that the folks who are most in need can get what they need when they need it, and not have to get the scraps that are left over.
Okay. Right. You said something that lead me into this next question, and I have to. I try to figure out where does this question fit in the questioning, but you hit on something there that I think it's a good segue to it. Do you think this shelter in place order helps couples and families build closer ties, or has it sown division and discord? And based on reports of domestic violence, what is your take on that based on the situation we're in?
That's a great question. What the pandemic has done, and you and I were discussing this right before we went live, is a lot of our landmarks, our daily, weekly landmarks are gone now in terms of how we live our lives, okay? For the typical student, it's get up at 5:36 in the morning, take care of your personal needs, maybe feed baby brother, baby sister. Dad's gone off to work or mom's gone off to work. You go to school all day. Maybe you have a sports practice. Maybe you don't. You see your friends. You get home at a certain time. Adults come home. We have dinner. We do our evening thing. It may involve homework, watching TV together, go whatever it is. And we do this over and over. And the social aspect of how we live our lives is very, very important. I was chatting with one of my students week before last, I believe it was, who parents are divorced, and she is custody alternate weeks between mom and dad. Okay, they live close enough that she can walk to either residence. Okay. Fortunately, okay, it's not like one's out of town, which is what happens with a lot of our young people. Okay, anyway, both of her parents have severe health issues. So when she's at mom's house, she's basically cooking, cleaning, doing things to make mom as comfortable as possible. The week she's at dad's house, you think she'd catch a break, but no, dad has health issues and auntie lives with dad. And so both of them are apparently overweight, have some diabetes issues, some other health issues where, again, the daughter is now the caretaker, not at one residence, but at two. And is trying to maintain her schoolwork as well. And she said something interesting because I just asked her, I knew she had talked about going out for sports, okay, as a ninth grader, which is, again, very important for young people. It's a social activity. You're making friends. You're getting a good workout. You're having coaches mentor and guide and lead you and push you, and you're doing some things maybe you didn't even know you were capable of as a 14 or 15-year-old. The student mentioned that they loved this one sport they were in. I believe it was soccer. And then the season ended, and the student had gotten hurt and then was going to be in track and loved track. Now, if you've participated in track, there's a lot of downtime, okay? Because that's what it is. You run your event, you run your heat, you do it a couple of times, then you need to sit and let your body regenerate before you go back. And in that time, you're sitting and you're talking with your friends and, hey, man, that was really good. You're getting those steps down or whatever, right? And the coaches are talking with you. She lost all that support, okay? All that's gone. And so now it's the grind of, I get up, I get online, I do my work, I take care of my parent, or I go to the other parent's house, and this is happening over and over and over. So what's happening to her socially? She's away from her friends, right? Because you can't go out, no groups. You're not at school, where even on the worst days, at least there's some friends there you're interacting with, some teachers who are working with you. So the pandemic has exposed a lot. In terms of how some people are able to survive it and how other people are not. I'm fortunate. My lady and I, we have our house, okay? We've been on this for a couple months now, and I love her to death, but I'll tell you, there's times, look, you go in your room and I'm going in mine, and I'll call you when dinner's ready, okay? Because those daily tensions, which, are not a big deal when you're just kind of in the flow and everything's all right. You're used to a little bit of this, but day after day after day, after day it wears on folks. And fortunately, she and I, we are okay financially, okay? We're not worried about bills not getting paid. But when you think about our less fortunate brothers and sisters, this thing is real business, okay?
Right.
And the one thing that many of the parents are hoping for is that the school will lift their children up.
Yeah.
Okay. I send my kids to school. I trust the teachers. I trust the counselors. I trust the administrators. I trust the coaches. Everybody who's there will halfway look out for my kid. And now all that's taken away. Okay. You know, in one Zoom call I had with a student, I noticed he had the video muted all the time. Okay. I could hear him, but I couldn't see him. And one time he turned it on and he turned his audio back on, and I heard angry yelling in the background. And unfortunately, the young man was doing one of these ducking things, like, you know, and I'm only with him for 15, 20 minutes, and I noticed it. So what is it like to have to be that way all day? Okay. Maybe Pop's lost a job, the money's tight. Maybe mom's just asking, hey, you know, when are we getting through this? And he doesn't have an answer. Wow. Okay. You know, Pops may not have an answer. Mom may not have an answer. You know, the money may be getting tight. You know, my school since this pandemic broke out, has given out over 1,000 lunches a day to people in the community.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And there are a lot of schools doing that. Okay. Yeah. And I heard this past week while I was reading that there were some schools on Friday, they're giving meals for the weekend.
Yeah.
People. Okay, and community groups are getting involved, and I know you probably know Paving Great Futures, Armand King, and some others that are giving away food baskets to people. I saw one today down at the corner of 65th and Imperial. They're giving food baskets away at a church, at a little storefront church there, I believe it is. Food giveaway for people in the community, and I see people in that area who are walking back and forth, thankful to get what they could get at this really challenging time. So yeah, this COVID has messed up our business.
No, this is serious business, and you're right. You know, my son, like I said, we're very fortunate that you know, we don't feel the bite as much as some others, and I try to stay away from the news as much as possible, but I want to, you know, listen in just to at least know kind of what's going on, and then I let it go because we know the rest of the story. And
right.
I grew up in some challenging times, and fortunately, my dad overcame a lot. I remember my mother telling me that, you know, I used to draw pictures of her in her little outfit because she worked at Motel 6 one time, and then she worked at Captain D's, the fish place, and I only saw her walking in and out the door. And that's so the picture I had was just her in her uniform. There was no quality time, and so she said that stuck with her for a long time, and this was basically after our house burned down. Which my dad and mom built in the country. We had to move into a smaller house, with 3 boys and mom and dad, and so we went from you know, a area where we could walk around to an area where we could bump into each other. And it took on all, but I was in 4th grade, and so I remember it. But you know, like you said, those times, you know, when we got back on our feet, we pretty much were committed to changing things for the better, and I had to look back. And so I value the times and the situations that we're in now across the board. But I do relate and understand, like you said, there are people that have to put up with things that just didn't normally have to put up with, and therefore it causes some negative behavior. And so this is very serious. So one of the questions that
you said something interesting. If I could jump in, okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
When that unfortunate situation happened with you and your family, is that there appeared to be, and correct me if I'm wrong, some community support that allowed you to start at least getting you all moving back in that positive direction. Okay. Right.
My uncle, he had a rent house. He had 3 rent houses, and he had moved away. And this one wasn't being rented at the time, and therefore we were able to use that. And basically, my dad, when we got back to, you know, to good order,
Right.
My dad ended up with about 10 rent houses before he passed.
Okay. So it's interesting to hear that because even in the toughest of times, you had a family structure that allowed you to restart, get back on your feet and get going. And for many of our children in schools today, that support is broken for whatever reason. Okay. So when they fall back hard. Okay. Not that you didn't fall back hard, but they fall back really hard. And, I'm thinking about, people who've told me that the parents of some of their students have been deported during this pandemic. Okay, the breadwinners have been sent south of the border and can't get back. And one young lady in particular told me dad has never been around, and mom got deported and can't get back. And so she stays at cousin's house. And she says, I'm lucky that I had a place, like you said, at least I had a place to go to, I just wonder how many students are going to be lost in this because, even though they supposedly no evictions, I don't know how strict that's being applied. And if, landlord says, hey, family A, you haven't been paying. I got family B over here, cash in hand, ready to go. Y'all need to skedaddle, okay?
Oh, man.
And what that means, okay? So yeah, there's so much what ties in, and schools in many cases are the social centerpiece of young people's lives. Okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. And when that is disrupted, everything can kind of get edgy. Okay. So you said you had a question. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think your story related very closely to the experiences that our students are feeling now. Okay. To put it in context, I met some folks here who landed in San Diego after Katrina. So, they not only didn't have a support network, they didn't have a neighborhood to go back to. Okay.
Wow.
So, they went from, if I recall, from Louisiana to Texas to Oklahoma to San Diego. Okay. And landed here. So you have to rebuild your support network.
Yeah.
For people, that initial support network is school. For adults, it's usually your workplace. You make friends, you find people with some commonalities. It might be your house of worship if you're in that mode. So yes, you're looking for things to connect you in a community so that you can start to lift yourself up again. So I don't want to take away the questions you've got, but these topics all run.
No, absolutely. And it's all relative. You're right. And I see that. And so it's interesting because when I look at some of the questions and I'm listening and I'm like, okay, you're definitely covering some of the other issues that tie into that initial question. So it's perfect. So here's one of the things that, like I said, some of the things I hear about on the news or I hear about from other people. So some of the questions will be a little interesting. And
that's how you roll. Come on, brother.
So here's one. So do you think another country other than China had anything to do with the unfortunate spread of this virus?
Wow. Do I think? Okay, well, I am not a health expert. Okay. But given the nature of how our world is structured, with people traveling constantly from one country to another country, okay, and then even within countries, okay, how much traveling is done there. When I think about how much traveling is done in my old hometown of New York, where everybody's on the bus, the subway, walking everywhere, okay, interacting with people, okay, there's no way around interacting with people. I think we were inadequately warned of the initial spread of the disease, and I definitely think that the response was could have been done sooner if it had been taken more seriously. I think that there were certain individuals who tried to paint this as an anti-US thing, like this virus came from another country. Well, the virus don't care where it came from, okay? It didn't care if it started from China, Africa, Asia, Antarctica, whatever, okay? The virus does what the virus does. What the hell does it matter where it came from?
Yeah.
Okay? But some people are painting this as a political thing when it's not a political thing, it's a health thing. Even though the politics, in many cases, some people say politics is everything, but, that kind of depresses me when I hear that because the ugly side of politics has been way too real for the last few years here. But
True.
to me, it doesn't matter where it came from.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if it was accidentally escaped out of a lab, if it was done by a bioterrorist who said, let me release this and see what happens, okay? The reality is our country for many years under our previous leader, President Obama, had a very healthy system in place for these sorts of things. And the man who came in decided that that was not needed and needed to be torn down, okay? As well as any other thing that President Obama accomplished, but that's a whole nother story. Wouldn't it be nice to have universal health care, like Brother Obama wanted right about now, have everybody have a health care plan so you didn't have to go to work worrying about being sick, okay? Look at these people. You're going to get me started, brother, okay? People, yeah, the Latino brothers and sisters and Black brothers and sisters working in the meatpacking plants who had no option but to go to work because they had no health care, working at a job which underpaid them, okay? And under threat of deportment or going bankrupt, going into poverty, yes,
right.
He would show up to work, okay? But the brother next to me, he'd been sneezing and runny nose 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't want to hear about that. If you tell anybody about it, we'll fire you. Okay? Don't get me started, Brother Rashid, okay? Because I go in a whole nother direction. I don't know if your folks appreciate this, okay? You might lose some listeners, but I don't care. But maybe you'll gain a few, okay? Maybe you'll gain. So, to answer your question, it doesn't matter to me where the damn thing came from because let's address it, okay? Right. How would you feel, okay, doggone it, put it in a family sense, okay? Somebody in your family got sick. Is your first question, where did they get sick? Where did it come from? No, it's what do we need to do to make them healthy?
Right.
How can we get grandma back? How do we get Uncle so-and-so healthy again? Okay?
Right.
But no, we're worried about where it came from, and so we're going to base our response on that, That's
So part 2 of that question.
There's another part.
So if you were president of China, what would you be thinking right now, hearing the rhetoric that goes on?
From what I've read, these folks are wondering what possessed a number of people in the United States to vote for the man who's currently in office, okay? Agreements and treaties that we've had for years, as shaky as they may be, this man's just ripping them up and throwing them in the fireplace, okay? As if he has some high level of wisdom that the previous administrations did not have, okay? But this is what happens when you elect someone, Brother Rashid, you do a lot of work on your house, okay? I've seen you do a lot of good work on your house. You have been wise enough to not invite me to come and help you because I don't know a damn thing about some of the stuff you're working on, okay? You would not say, hey, love, I know you know nothing about electricity, but I want you to come help me hook my house up and I'll watch it burn down in 2 days. You wouldn't do that, okay? But somehow politically, we want to put somebody with zero experience who has a track record of being totally about himself and his kind and not really concerned with the needs and wants and desires of other people in day-to-day living. Some folks got buffaloed, okay? Yeah. They got bamboozled, okay? After 8 years of an articulate, well-spoken, intelligent, highly educated, committed, social leader, Black president with a beautiful wife, incredible children, which put a highlight on a lot of stereotypes that people were confronted with, okay? They didn't put Ray Ray in office, okay? They put a man who was a constitutional scholar in office. Right. And they want to come back later and act like he didn't know anything, okay? Even comparing the statuses of the respective first ladies, okay? Highly educated Black woman, beautiful Black woman, 2 beautiful daughters, and on her appearance because her sleeves were showing, and she's got some nice guns for a female. Y'all jealous as hell, okay? Jealous as hell, don't know how to deal with it, okay? And 8 years of her leading things, leading initiatives, and what has the current First Lady done? you know, let's wait. The crickets are coming in, you know. She's trying to be as undercover as possible, apparently.
Yeah.
And possibly with good reason, because if my spouse acted like her spouse does, I wouldn't come out in public much either. Okay. Oh, good, he's gone. Great. I have the house to myself this weekend. Oh man. Don't get me started, brother. Okay. Don't get me started. But yeah, that's my thought on that. Okay.
No problem.
The response was not adequate. There was no timely response. Tried to say it was a hoax. Okay. Had tore down the parts of the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization, you know, and then coming up with a statement, well, if we didn't have so many tests, we wouldn't know how many, all these people were sick, you know. Okay, so just don't test anybody, okay? Let them fall over dead, okay? And maybe we'll figure it out when we stack the bodies up later. Talking about stacking up bodies, I hope you and your folks were paying attention to what was happening in New York as things got worse, stacking up bodies in U-Haul trucks.
Yes.
Okay.
Devastating.
Okay.
Yes.
If it was happening in Beverly Hills or the rich districts in San Francisco, DC, or you know, the Upper West Side of Manhattan, they would not let that happen. Okay, would not let that happen. They would demand a response. But folks worried about having to I'm insulted by wearing a mask in public. My liberties are being repressed. You know, let me stop.
And you know, interesting enough, you know, being in this space and listening to podcasts and broadcasters and watching interviews and things like that, I come to understand that you're going to get the variety of views. And I've had somebody on that has a total opposite view of this from a constitutional perspective.
Okay.
You know, so it's good dialogue, and I think tomorrow I'll have one that has that perspective as well. And I'm good with that because I'm curious to hear that argument. And I'm not here to refute it or anything. Just to give them a platform to speak, and that's great, right? And so one of the questions that, and I, you know, I think about all the rhetoric that has been coming out about, you know, China, and then the next thing you see is, you know, Trump and the president over there of China shaking hands. And then Trump saying, hey, you know what, we're gonna free up this trade deal, and now we can trade with China with 5G. And these, you know, Huawei and all of this. And then, I don't know, a week later he decides to not do that. So, and that's why I kind of said, okay, what is the China, you know, president really thinking? Because, you know, he's got to be just as confused as the rest of the world of this president. So, okay.
Well, I'll talk on my little point on that for a minute, okay? Is just about everything you buy now has a label on it that says made in where?
If it's not China, it probably doesn't exist.
Yeah. I don't think I can touch anything on my desk that doesn't have a label on it, made in China, okay? Let me check my speaker. Let me check my back of my computer. Anything around here, the phone, okay? What I think has happened is with these trade agreements, with the businesses shipping jobs overseas and the American dollars going overseas, okay? I think China has come to a point where we have all these American dollars. Change in power structure, okay? Because the one thing America knows, supposedly, is money, okay? I had someone ask me the other day, I was reading that we've been in Afghanistan 19 years. 19 years, still no end in sight, okay? Why are we still there? Look underground, brother. Look underground, okay? Okay. If the Taliban or ISIS or someone who was not friendly to America got control of all that oil, the money, the power structure changes.
Yep.
Okay? And there were who were leaders 20 years ago when there was the first talk of going to quote unquote war there. And why would we do that? Especially given that the attackers on 9/11 were not from Afghanistan. They were from Saudi Arabia. Okay.
Right. Yep.
So if you're going to shoot back at somebody, shoot back at Saudi Arabia. No, can't do that. There's something underground we can't destroy. Okay. No, we want that. So let's go one or two countries over and act like we're doing something. Okay. Yeah. And now we got into it, and it's almost like the guy who picked the fight with the wrong guy and now realize he's getting his butt whipped and can't get out of it. Okay. Because if we decide as a nation to just cut and run from Afghanistan, okay, and some people would say you're cutting your losses, okay, because once again, the American men and women who are going over there to fight are not from the upper stratus of American society.
Right,
okay?
right.
They are coming from the poorer communities with less opportunities. So the military is real for them, and realizing they're going over there and putting their lives on the line for a business format that marginalizes them from day one. So yeah, this conflict is an internal conflict that we have to resolve before we can move forward. Okay.
Absolutely. No, totally agree. Totally agree.
Anyway, just to clarify one other thing, you said you were having someone who comes from a different point of view, and that's great. We need to have those discussions because one of the things that has happened is we live near people who think like us. We hang with people who think like us. We get this minimal herd mentality where somebody says something, we all go, ah, you know.
Yeah.
Much like the outings that our current president likes to have. He's missing his little rallies, I'll tell you, you know. People wearing all them red hats, he can't live without that, okay, you know. Everybody loves me here, you know.
Yeah.
Well, we need to break that group in half and then bring in a group of people from a different point of view, and we just sit in a room and have a discussion because bottom line is, okay, poor folks, whether you're on the red side or the blue side, are still poor folks. Right. And the system is chewing you up anyway.
Anyway. And you know, and speaking on both sides, I was listening to, and the name came up, I think, in our meeting last week. You know the name Candace Owens?
Yes.
What about Roland Martin? Have you heard of them speak about this issue?
A little bit,
yeah.
A third name I'll throw in there is Dr. Boyce Watkins too.
Boyce Watkins, absolutely. And you know, I listened to him the other day and just trying to do some research and see what perspective he had as well. And of course, you know, Roland Martin is very interesting. I haven't listened to him enough to really understand where he's coming from, if it's left, right, or if he's just kind of independently doing his thing. Because
are you aware with his history?
I do not. I'm not into it.
Okay. He was a CNN featured commentator for a few years, and had a pretty big following. And he had a falling out with CNN and left them. Okay, and he went off into the Twitterverse, doing his live feeds because he felt in disagreement with some of the positions that CNN was taking, and felt that CNN, like many people feel, the Democratic Party is, they take black folks for granted, and that there were certain issues, you know, they'll touch on the surface, but they wouldn't get down in the where it's nasty, where we really got to deal with stuff. Okay. Yeah. And so. I'm paraphrasing there, but that's the impression I got by Roland Martin left there. And since he has gone off on his own, like Dr. Boyce Watkins has, he's become more critical of the Democratic Party, saying, look, I don't like the Republicans necessarily, but the Democrats have kind of smoothed things over with us and are counting on us and are not serving us the way we need to be serviced. Okay. So I think that's kind of where it went. So what's your take on Roland Martin?
Well, I've only watched him a few times, and he seemed pretty. I think he's similar to Boris Watkins. I like Boris Watkins because he's not on either side, and as far as when you get into parties and things like that, he's just about, look, if you're black, here's a solution to the poverty, and Black Business School, this is how you need to do it.
Right.
And so he zeroed in on, look, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this. If we can focus here, we might do something.
Now, you know what's interesting to me, okay, is that's exactly what Dr. King was talking about right before he was assassinated.
Wow.
Okay. The issue is not black and white. The issue is rich versus poor.
There you go.
Poor white folks are no better off than poor black folks, other than in their own mind.
That's right.
So what he was saying is we need to look at these economic issues. Okay, and remember, he lost his life after leading a march for the garbage collectors union.
Wow.
Okay, to try to get them decent living wages and
living wages,
health
right?
Benefits.
Exactly.
It happened. Many of those workers were black.
Yep.
Okay, but they weren't treating their white workers any better.
That's right. Okay?
And once he started talking about the economic disharmony that's built into society, all of a sudden the stuff got kind of intense. Okay, this brother, he's got to go. Okay, he's got to go. Malcolm X was also offering some levels of black empowerment beyond what the many parts of the communities were pushing for, and he got taken down obviously by some of his own folk.
Yeah.
But it just shows you how real that tension can be when you start to get near people's dollars. Okay.
Wow. Yeah. That's serious.
Yeah.
So I've listened to some of that, and I when I was following the presidential campaign, that's when I kind of was introduced to Candace Owen, and they were having these conferences and trying to figure out how to mobilize the Black community, and that's a massive challenge. So one of the things that we talk about economics, so I kind of wanted to look at that from this perspective. And under the COVID-19 kind of effect, I read somewhere that two large companies generated around $280 billion in about 2 months of this pandemic locking everybody down. But during the total time, maybe 3 to 4 months in this pandemic, most of the companies didn't generate that much. Do you think there's an economic opportunity for those that pay attention coming out of this pandemic?
Absolutely. When you're talking about a fundamental reworking of how to do things, okay, an example I'll give you is my younger son, who is on the level between a cook and a chef, okay, and was working at a very high-end hotel up on the coast, North County here in San Diego, and attached to a hotel. So of course, when the hotel closed, the restaurant went,
Yeah.
Other than, he said, there are a group of people, interestingly enough, who apparently are extremely wealthy and live in the hotel. So he said they get meals every day, but there's only a few of them. They don't need 20 cooks to do this because you're not feeding a restaurant. So he kind of went up and down for a while, and so lately what he's done is he's been preparing different unique food items at home, creating some recipes, trying them out, and then going giving them to friends, or selling them to friends, or giving them to he's been going to various hospitals and police stations and things like that, and just giving food away, preparing meals and giving it away. And I said, what's your long-term goal here? Well, number one, he says, I'm practicing my craft, okay, keeping my game sharp. Number two, when this thing turns around, it'll give me an opportunity to say, I've done this, and this at a time when things were flatlined. And so the question I asked him was, what's preventing you from growing it? Okay, from really getting this out? Have you, I don't have money for business cards or flyers or anything. I said, you should be putting a business card in every meal you serve. Okay, you got your little Gmail address, set you up a little cheap website, and just put some pictures, because he takes pictures of everything to document what he's cooked, okay? And I said, put it on your website and people can pre-order for you. I'm no expert in the field, but maybe you make, and I'm being stupid here, meatloaf Monday and fried chicken Tuesday and, Chateaubriand Wednesday and, these sorts of things. And then he says, well, I need, I'm cooking out of a home kitchen where he stays and it's too small. And I said, well, is there a way you can talk to a restaurant owner and see if they'll let you in? Because I know some restaurants, they have their slow nights, slow days or whatever. And I said, right now they're all closed pretty much. So is there a way you can get in there and maybe prepare food in a larger environment and grow this? And so he started to think about, okay, this is another, maybe you've got make some sense here. And I said, I'm not a business person, but I said, I just know for me, going to the store now is a pain.
Yeah.
Okay. There are times it's aggravating. Okay. Thank goodness the other night, a lady and I went to Food for Less. We didn't get there till about 9:45. The place was almost empty. Okay. I ain't going in the daytime, brother. There's too many fools out there. Okay. I went to some other places. Folks were yelling at the crew, were yelling at the cashiers, were yelling at the people because they couldn't find stuff on the shelves. Like if you yell at somebody, they're going to magically run in the back and find, the cut of whatever you were looking for. But no, so to get back to your question, yes, there's a lot of opportunities here for people. I've been reading about people who've been doing yoga classes online. Okay. I've heard of people who've been doing exercise things. If you can't go to the gym, here's what you can do at home that will replicate that. Get your chair, put it behind you, do this, and you could stand in front and do this, and then we get our Zumba on, whatever it is. So it just changes your context from being local to being a global in a social sense that possibly could attract more people. So there's an opportunity, but again, you got to have adequate capital, okay? And that I think is a big part is to let some of our people grow economically through this. I think Dr. Boyce Watkins would argue that point as well, is that this is a real opportunity for folks to change what they've been doing economically and stop looking at surviving and seeing how you can move from surviving economically to thriving economically.
Absolutely.
Brother Rashid, you've told me many times, everybody needs a side hustle.
Hey man, I'm all over it. I'm all over it. One of the things, like you said, with the cost of doing business, a lot of times that's a big deal. But people create that hurdle for themselves, because that's why I do so much stuff online, is because it doesn't cost a lot to go online and put a camera in front of you and reveal your craft in conversation. Because and I'm gonna tell you literally, today I was on entrepreneur webinar with veterans, and they brought up, the lady said that she has one of the entrepreneurs was a chef, and they, like you said, they ran into this problem of, okay, now I'm physically not where I'm normally at, but guess what? Now I can actually prepare meals in front of this camera. And now they're actually preparing meals in front of the camera and teaching a class on camera.
Nice.
Right? So I was thinking about, wow, that's a good way. And so while you were speaking on that, I was like, okay, if he's taking pictures, and we do the same thing. My wife's been taking pictures for years of everything she did. And at a point, I'm like, what are you going to do with those pictures? I said, yes, that you look at it, and you're like, it looks really, delicious and all those things. But I said, at a point, we got to figure out, how do we make this, take it to the next level? It's got to mean something. And so I started taking pictures, since I've been cooking since this whole thing happened as well. And so now I'm like, there's got to be something we can do, because she used to cook bread when we were in Texarkana, and then we started delivering it to the store, and and then we evolved into how to preserve it, and it was a trial and error there, because we wanted it to be fresh. So you deliver it fresh, but if it doesn't sell that day,
right,
it's like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah.
So we learn a lot from that. But I think opportunities are huge, and you really were key on you taking it from local to global. And a lot of people don't even anticipate going outside the local area. in a brick and mortar store or a restaurant. But guess what? When you go online and you know, take your craft to the next level because you're forced into doing it. And what a guy said the other night on an interview is forced evolution. You're literally having to adjust, but you're adjusting in the right way. You just needed to push.
Yes.
You know, and so I think we could really expand if he has that skill set and he has that desire. It's just a matter of technology to take that thing to the next level.
Right. Yeah, you know, it's funny you mention that because I don't do a lot of social media. I have Facebook, I have Twitter, and that's it. You know, no Snap, no TikTok, no Instagram, nothing. But what happens is whenever my son when he comes over every other week or so and does a meal here, okay, and he takes a picture of the plate. He goes, what are you doing? You know, he goes, I'm putting it on my Instagram page, and he will put the picture on his Instagram page, and within 5 minutes I'll hear ding, 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 and he'll look over, and all these fellow chefs and cooks and commentators are, oh, what's that? Did you add this? Have you tried that? Did you think about it? And he's going, making notes on things, okay? So that when things do get turned around, because they always do, you and I know this is life, okay? It's one of these. Right now, we're down here, but it's going to come back up. When it does come back up, are you going to be prepared, or are you going to be running behind the curve and everybody beat you to the main event before you could even get a ticket? Okay, so if there's ever a time for the underserved populations to be creative in their thinking here, moving forward, how can you do it? How can you do it? Whether it's a side hustle, whether it's passive income, whether it's supporting someone else, okay, whatever it is, and it's the collective economic uplift, okay, we need to get out of the mindset of me, okay, and what's going to happen 20 years from now when we all pool this together and grow it and see where it goes, okay. But, you know, brother, I don't trust you with my money, you know. I work too hard for this money. You know, you remember A Raisin in the Sun, don't you? Okay, you know, the uncle died and left them $10,000. Grandma wanted to buy a house, and the boy Sidney Poitier's character wanted to start a business. You know, and she's like, we've been waiting for this money. He's like, I've been waiting for it too. I want to get this side, you know, get this gig going. And just the tension between generations, such a poignant play, by the way. God, we miss Lorraine Hansberry, don't we? But anyway, just the difference in how to do this and what we're going to do. And I remember my discussions with my late father, God rest his soul, you know, when I would have an idea and he's like, well, where are you getting the money from? You know, well, look, I had the idea. I'm coming to you for, you know, financial support. But I had to understand his struggle as a Black man growing up in the era of the Depression. You didn't gamble money on things like that. Okay? Yeah. And there was times when too many folks said they would take your money, say they're going to do something, and then gone. Okay.
Wow.
Gone. I know you know about some of that.
Man, I believe me. I could tell you about situations that, you know, when me and my wife was overseas and when we were pretty successful with one of the marketing businesses that we were running in, and I visited the factories in China, and you know, just thoroughly impressed. And that's why they're, you know, economically they're leading. They have strategies. I don't agree with their human rights and how they do it, but they were, you know, they were put in some bad situations by the U.S. in basically invading their country. Ford was there, you know, the big industry, so on and so forth, and just, you know, rip them apart. And so that's why they were not being charged at the level that Trump wanted them to be charged, because we know that we were wrong, U.S. So
let's call it what it was. It was a form of reparations.
Somebody's getting it.
Can we say that word? Okay. We did it for Japan, right?
That's right.
You know, we did it for China.
Yep.
Right? It's just reparations. Let me leave that there. Okay.
I know. That's a woo, man.
So you said when you were visiting there that you saw certain things, and yes, many countries who have made major economic turnarounds have had major human rights violations.
big time. It's
They seem to go together many times, don't they?
and you know, and that's something that, like I said, the politics of it. I mean, that's definitely another conversation. I, I try to be careful with that because. Whew. So here's one of the things that, speaking of violations, did you know that Bill Gates said in a TEDx speech that the way to reduce population is via vaccines by 10-15%? Do you know why he is even interested in reducing global population?
I've never spoken to Bill Gates. I have had some students benefit from his scholarship generosity, okay? But when people with money talk, it usually involves somehow them making money. I'm going to leave that there, okay? I'm going to leave that there. My question is, what's in it for him?
Yeah.
Okay. And if he wanted to cut 10% of 15% of the world's population, start with your family first, and then I'll believe that you're as committed as you say you are. Okay.
Yeah. Stay out of Africa. Test it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Oh, wait, okay. At least you said it. I wasn't going to go there. Okay. Yeah. Wouldn't they love to get rid of 10 or 15% of the population in Africa and then move in even more and rape the natural resources that are there? Okay.
That's right. So yeah, that agenda is definitely, like I said, I mean.
Wait. They did that already. Didn't they do that in what we now call the United States? Wipe out most of the native population? Whoa, time out.
So it's not new, and it's definitely not strange. It's just what they call, what did they call it? Modus operandi. This is how they do. You know, it literally how they do. And I've received videos in my messenger box on Facebook from guys that say, hey, did you see this video? And it goes into the history, like all the way back to Bill Gates' great-great-great-grandfather and how he's related to some. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'll take it with a grain of salt. I'll put it over here. And then when you start to, like you said, follow the money, who is profiting? You know, why are you being the biggest donor to the WHO? Right.
And one thing I appreciate about you, Brother Rashid, and I've been a proponent to this for years myself, and your listeners and viewers should probably be it as well, is do your own research.
Yeah.
Okay. Dig deep into it. Do your own research. Read books. I know it's difficult for many of us, but get in there, read some books, read some magazine articles with various viewpoints. Okay. Because right now, you know that the algorithms on social media, Facebook and YouTube and these various things, YouTube is sending me videos related to things that I watched 6 months or a year ago. Okay. All of a sudden, I thought you'd be interested in this. How did you know? You know, same thing with Facebook. You know, I look at something on Amazon or eBay, and the first ad that shows up on my Facebook is still interested in this, you know, and I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
So y'all got fingers everywhere watching things that are happening and trying to manipulate my behavior as a result of that, okay? And they can do it on a multiple scale with their mathematical algorithms, okay? So I encourage, again, especially the young people, because the young people, you have been given a false view of history in schools, okay? You've been given a false view of the way things really were. There are things that are omitted.
Yeah.
You know, everything in history is not his story. There should be some her stories in there and our stories, okay? And they will have you thinking that the people who are oppressing you are your friends when they are not. Okay? So definitely read books, get into some things. See, they're calling you up right now. Read.
They heard you.
Let's pull the plug on this, brother. Yeah. Read books, get different points of view. Follow some scholars, okay, and understand that the economic situation in your community is set up the way it is intentionally. And if you are going to survive in it, you cannot play the game where somebody else is holding all the major properties. You would not play Monopoly with somebody who has Boardwalk, Park Place, and 2/3 of the properties locked down before you start the game.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. But this is the way the society is set up right now. Okay.
Mm.
We're going to try to make money on Baltic and Mediterranean, and they got Boardwalk and Park Place. Okay. Doesn't work that way.
No
It's
way.
not a fair game.
No
not
way.
A fair game. And anyway, let me get back to, let you get back to your questions. So,
So here's one that I've, and I don't know if you've seen some of my posts that I talk about, 5G and some of the technologies out there. And so I do a lot of research on those because I'm really, really interested in how do we get ahead, with the flying cars and, people going to the moon and actually being able to come back. So, I love science fiction and things like this, but I know that a lot of the science fiction is based on actual things that they just can't connect the dots to get to that end spot, to actually reality. But most of it is created from some brilliant minds that come up with these things. But then you get into the ancient alien type TV shows and how a lot of the technology comes from outer space and this, that, and the other. I'm like, okay, I can't prove it, so whatever. But there are some things that are unexplained, I would say, at our point in time and in history. But one of the things that I like I said, the technology is very interesting to me, and so I refute some of the things that I have the ability to do when it talks about 5G. So one of the questions that I brought up, because this came up in a article, series of articles, and there's been a lot of counter articles about it just to clear people's minds. Do you think the governments are using the cloak of this pandemic to roll out 5G?
personally, I just think that's coincidental. Okay. I have no proof of that. I just think this is a belief I have. I have a couple of friends who are much more technologically knowledgeable than I am. And they were talking about 5G before 4G even got halfway big. Okay. And again, one of them who's a bit of, I would say a little bit of a conspiracy theorist in him, okay, is once again, as a young boy, if you had told me that I would be able to have a computer in my pocket, okay, I would have been like, yeah, okay, you know, because the computers that I knew, they filled rooms, right? You know, they had punch cards, and if you had to hold them up, and if one end of the punches was off, the whole thing would shut down, right? You heard of those, didn't you?
That's right. That's right.
But the level of information and misinformation we can get from here is very, very, what do I want to say, critical, because I met a woman who believes that everything on YouTube is basically unfiltered truth. From neither political party, okay? I get all my information from YouTube and social media, and I'm like, you realize how much of that is misinformation, right? You know, but I could not even discuss the point with her that, you know, she believed some things that were ridiculous on the face, but if you hunted around YouTube enough, you'd probably find 100 people who are saying that this is true, okay?
Yeah.
No, I just think that this was a total coincidence. I don't know what one even has to do with the other, but I do know that sometimes people will run and I used to play a game when I was a kid back in Brooklyn, 3-card Monty, okay? 3-card Monty, they had 3 cards, and the dude would, you know, flip, and okay, where's the ace of hearts, you know? And he would lure you on a little bit in the beginning, and then he would, you know, and you couldn't follow it because he would use a distraction to get you to, you know, look at something else or turn away or not notice that he took that one card and flipped it up under the table and dropped another one. So none of them are the ace of hearts, right? But anyway, I just think it is a coincidence. But one thing that the current leader of our nation is very good at bringing distractions in when it comes when the heat gets hot. We're still waiting for his tax returns. We're still waiting for his health care plan. We're still waiting for a whole lot of other things. But now, you know, he's going to call out, I've decided I'm going to confront the governors. Churches are now essential. That came out today, if you didn't know that. Open all the churches. They're essential. And if they don't, I will talk. The governors will hear what I say. You know, whatever happened to presidential overreach?
Yeah.
You know, when President Obama tried to do anything, oh, that's not the federal government's role. That's the state government's role. Okay. But, you know, he's very good at distracting from things at hand. And if he doesn't want to answer a question, he'll just say that you're nasty. Okay. You're nasty. You're a nasty person. You know, you've always been nasty. Your network is nasty. You and Janet Jackson, just nasty. But no, this, and I think it's another distraction. Okay, look, to me, what does it matter? Okay, how is it affecting poor folks? How is it affecting black folks? You know, do black folks care if COVID came from China, New Mexico, or Canada? I don't. You know, 4G, 5G. I remember flip phones. I remember phones where you had to lift up the antenna and use the little spinny wheel, okay? Remember to change the volume and scroll? You remember that, right? I should have never thrown that phone away. It worked great, okay? But it wouldn't work today. It wouldn't work today.